This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks. Welcome to the show.
This is American Real TV.
What's your mission? What do you want your legacy to be? You have such a great story. I cannot wait to share it. Welcome to the American Real family. I cannot wait to air this episode.
And now, here's your host, Roger Brooks.
We talk a lot about innovation and ambition on the show, but there's a deeper operating system that determines where all that energy goes. Call it virtue. At a time when climate stress, inequality, and runaway media incentives pull us towards cynicism, three ancient ideas feel surprisingly disruptive: courage, compassion, and redemption. Courage to tell the truth when it's inconvenient, compassion to widen the circle of who counts, and redemption, the audacity to change course personally and collectively before it's too late. Here's the question I want us to sit with today. What is the worthy role for humans, the most consequential species on Earth, in the living tapestry of this planet? When power meets conscience, who wins? And can a good story actually move us from greed and self-interest towards stewardship and solidarity? I think it can, especially when it's told with heart, with urgency, and with an innovation to act. Today, we're joined by Geoffrey Holland, an Emmy Award-winning writer, producer, journalist, and assertive humanitarian voice for nature, people, and planet. His new novel, Virtue, Courage, Compassion, Redemption, follows power, conscience, and what it takes to change course, personally and globally. It's a story that entertains while asking hard questions about media, responsibility, and the future we choose together. We'll talk craft, character, and why Geoffrey is committing book proceeds to real-world activism, and what he's building next at virtueisgreen.com. Geoffrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Roger.
So, look, a lot to unfold here today, but let's start here. What actually got you started as an an active voice for nature, people, and the planet?
Well, it began when I was growing up as a teenager. I read National Geographic stories about Jane Goodall and her exploits in Gombe Reserve in Tanzania with chimpanzees. And I was inspired tremendously by Jane Goodall, and I decided that I wanted to learn more about this arena. And as time went on, as I graduated college and was in the military service, I spent a lot of my off time reading books like The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich and Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. And that just reinforced my desire to be a voice in service of nature. And that's pretty much how I got started. And I just kept after that as time went on.
And what do you think, today, and I think about like my kids and, the next generation, it just, to me, it seems like as time goes on, the generations are getting less close to nature rather than more close. Is that your take on it as well?
I think so. I think they're wound up on TikTok and the social media, and most of it is empty calories. So they're just it's attention. It's about attention. There's so much that sucks up their attention that they just don't get tuned into what's really going on, and so much of the media is focused on directing them away from what they should be thinking about toward issues related to that finally break down to profitability and that sort of thing. So we have to get past that.
Yeah, and I guess just to break it down even further in its simplest form for me and for our audience, what is it about nature, if something as simple as taking off your shoes and walking barefoot in the grass, right? Just feeling that connection to nature, taking a hike in the woods, all the senses come out. And what is it about that you see as being important, to your overall mission, but to help people get to that common denominator, that most basic form of connection to nature?
Well, we started out maybe 200,000, 300,000 years ago as a distinct species. And we were focused basically on survival. And everything that surrounded us was part of that survival. I mean, the plants and animals, I mean, they were there for us to exploit, and survival was very difficult at that time. Most people didn't live past the age of 20. They grew up, humans have evolved believing that nature was there for us and that we were superior to nature, and that we were entitled to whatever we wanted to take from nature. And that was fine up until maybe 100 years ago, when there were 2 billion people on the planet 100 years ago. And just since that, in the last 100 years, we've gone from 2 billion to more than 8 billion. And probably in the next 2 decades, we're going to be up at 10 billion. And we've just extremely gone beyond what is manageable and sustainable in terms of human impact on the planet. So we have to relearn how to be. We're the most consequential species on the planet, and we've got to learn what that means. We are entirely responsible for what's happened to and the dysfunction with nature, and the only ones that can fix it is us. This is our mission, I think, is people who understand this. And Jane Goodall was I'm just devastated with her loss, but she was such a powerful example and an inspiration, and she's always been an inspiration to me. But we all have an obligation to do what we can when we can, to make a difference, and with our behavior and with the way we communicate to other people.
Right. And I know, Jeff, you have some recognition as a writer and producer of videos and documentaries focus on these existential threats to our Earth's living system. So can you talk about that? I know you talked about Jane and her mission. Talk a little bit more about some of the things that you have done in this arena.
Well, what happened is after I got out of the Army, I spent a couple of years doing graduate work at the University of Washington. And then I decided I wanted to be a writer and producer. So I moved to Los Angeles and spent the next almost 30 years trying to find my place in that community. And what I ended up doing is connecting with a lot of other people whose values were similar to mine. We wanted to make a difference, and we started to make short videos and some longer videos focused on issues like population and what the impact of humans on the planet and the Earth's natural systems. And I got some recognitions for doing that. But Jane Goodall taught me another lesson, and that is that if you want to get to the heart, this is almost a quote from her, if you want to get to the heart, you do it with stories. So I decided that I was going to become a fiction writer, and I was going to focus on fiction that would entertain and also make a difference with people. And I didn't know anything about fiction writing when I started, so it's taken me years to failure here and there and a little success here and there. And I finally got to this point where Virtue is the first actual novel that I've completed. I've done some screenplays as well, but it's the first novel that I've done. And anyway, that's how I got to the point where I'm at right now.
No, and so let's back up just a little bit to, I think it was about 20 years ago, you wrote your first nonfiction book,
Yes.
The Hydrogen Age.
Right.
What motivated you to do that book then?
No, it's really interesting. I mean, humans have grown up. At first, we just used wood and burned wood to provide heat and to survive. Then, as industrialism came in the early 19th century, we started using coal and then oil to power the industrial era. And what happened then is we started to exploit these resources. And, it wasn't such a bad thing when there were only like less than 1 billion people on the planet. But when you got to the point 100 years ago, when we were 2 billion and we were trying to provide energy for all of those people, the pollution that it created and the toxicity that it created in the process of digging it out of the ground and then burning it and flooding the atmosphere with hydrocarbons and so forth, that really created a huge problem. We're still immersed in that problem. We've got a government right now who says climate change is a hoax, and their mantra is drill, baby, drill, and which is antithetical to where we should be going. So I wrote The Hydrogen Age because I wanted to do something that talked about how nature provided energy. And the fact of the matter is, almost 90% of all of the atoms in the universe are hydrogen atoms. And hydrogen is the fuel that powers the sun, it powers the stars, and all life, when you boil it down to the most fundamental level, is powered by hydrogen. So I thought to myself, it's very clear that this is where we have to go. We need to get into an economic system that runs on electricity and on hydrogen as the energy currencies. Because, if you're running on those two energy currencies, you're not causing pollution, assuming you get the energy initially from renewable sources. So I wrote The Hydrogen Age in 2007 with the intent to inspire people and motivate the movement to hydrogen. And we've made a lot of progress in that direction. And it's very clear that that's where we have to end up. With an economy that runs on electricity and hydrogen. And there's more than enough hydrogen to provide all of our energy needs. And especially now when we've got AI taking such a prominent role, the thing that's most essential for AI is having tons and tons of energy to provide power for these systems that make AI work. This is another thing with AI. We have to learn to get along with AI because we're talking about a sentient intelligence that, in theory, is going to be millions of times smarter than the most intelligent human that ever lived. So we have to get to a point where we're living in concert with AI, and the only way we're going to do this is by harnessing all of the sources of energy that deliver hydrogen as a storable fuel that ultimately can be turned into electricity. So that's what motivated me to write the book. And it was very well received at the time. But we're still in the process of moving to hydrogen. It's got more of a role now than it's ever had before. But it's still, here's the problem. You've got a group of corporations and oligarchs who have invested heavily in fossil fuels. And they don't want to change because they're making so much money with it. And they are resisting, through their political influence and their influence with the media, they're resisting the transition to hydrogen. And so I'm not sure when we're going to get past that point. It seems like we're in a reckoning point right now for the human culture. We're at the point where we have to decide if we're going to remain like we were, wedded to tribalism and self-interest, or are we going to move to another kind of humanity that is focused on cooperation and compassion. We're all in this together. We can't leave some people behind and look at some people as lesser than other people. We have to learn to get along together, and that's the only thing that's going to work in the long term.
Interesting. And I know you've also written a lot about modern industrial agriculture and food security. What do you see, I guess, what's wrong with the way humans are eating?
Well, first of all, I want to start this by saying that a plant-based diet is more healthy, and it's also less expensive than cost for humans. So I believe that we have to evolve eventually to that. But the way it works right now, again, we've got wealthy corporations and oligarchs who have invested heavily in industrial agriculture, which is devastating to soils. And more and more wildlands are being taken up and converted into croplands. Right now, 50% of all the arable land on the planet is dedicated to agriculture. And of that, almost 80% is focused on livestock and feeding livestock. And so our dependence, our feeling of entitlement about eating meat is really a problem. And it's basically the developed countries that are most at fault with this. But the good news is, and there is some wonderful good news, there are new systems available. There are systems where called vertical farming, where you can put in buildings in communities where you can grow many of the basic food crops that the world needs. You can also, well, there's another thing that works very well. We've gotten to the point now where, with technology, where we can take cell cultures from animals and we can use those cell cultures to actually massively produce actually meat products, eggs, milk. All of these things can be created with cell cultures in a manufacturing process. So when we make the choice to make the transition, we can actually move away completely from having to kill animals and eat them. Right now, we kill and eat 250 million animals every single day. And to me, that diminishes us as a species when we treat these animals like commodities rather than living creatures. And the other thing is about that is we've taken up so much of the land with our need for agriculture that only 4% of the vertebrate animals wild animals on the planet are wild animals. The rest of it are livestock animals and humans. So if we're going to get to the point where we're giving back to nature and returning some of the, and we have to do this if we're going to live sustainably, because what we're doing is not sustainable right now. We have to get past the eating meat. So one of the things that I write about and talk about is kill-free agriculture, and I think that's a euphemism that we all need to embrace, because this is something, if we can sell it on the social media, everybody in the world can buy into this idea of kill-free agriculture or kill-free eating. We can do that now, and this can be so powerful as a symbol for where the world can go if we can get enough people to embrace it. But you've got a lot of resistance from people, like I said, who control the social media and have all the wealth and the political power. But I think we're at a point of reckoning. We've got to make a decision about where we're going to go with this.
Are these cell cultures in market today?
Very, very limitedly, because it's just small startups that are doing it right now. It's not big corporations. The big corporations controlled by the wealthy, they're focused on using politics to suppress the evolution to these new technologies. And the only way to make this, to move this forward as quickly as it can happen, and it needs to happen, is if you can use the social media to educate the people and sell them on the idea that if you really want to change the world and make it work for all people, the place to start is what you eat. That to me seems like it shouldn't be a difficult thing to do. It's just a matter of messaging and getting the word out.
So, love to talk to you about your new novel, which is titled Virtue. And as I mentioned earlier, the subtitle is Courage, Compassion, Redemption. What motivated you, Jeff, to write this book?
Well, as I said, Jane Goodall, she was the one that inspired me to try to write fiction. And the idea when you write fiction is you've got to start out with the idea that entertaining the reader has to be the primary goal. And then once you've done that, you have to use what you've written to inform and inspire the reader with ideas that they can carry forward in their own lives. And so Virtue was the first novel that I've written that actually attempts to do that. It's basically a story about a young woman anthropologist who spends part of her time working in the Congo in Africa with bonobos, which is a primate species similar to chimpanzees. And the other part of her life, she spends developing, she's getting a PhD in anthropology. She spends her time developing the use of laptops and cell phones, that sort of thing, to educate indigenous women in their own languages. Like, for instance, in the story, a big part of it takes place in Ethiopia with a group of indigent women who are from the Amharic culture, which is basically a pastoral culture. And because of the climate change and the overpopulation, they end up in a settlement where everybody struggles to survive. And this anthropologist, a wonderful character, she comes to them and uses the laptops and tablet computers to teach women in their own language, to empower them with what they can do. And a big part of my mantra is we've got to get past the idea with the patriarchy where men rule. And this is what has brought us is basically a lot of I can't think of the word. We're basically people thinking only of themselves. Tribalism is the word I was thinking of, and tribalism and self-interest. And women are not built that way. I mean, they're wired to nurture, and everywhere where women have actually gotten the chance to lead on a large scale, they've been transformative in what they've accomplished. And I thought, I want to write a story about a woman who has that capacity, totally transformative. And I think Virtue works very well on that level. And I think the natural audience for Virtue is women, feminist women particularly, and young people. Young people are the ones that have the most at stake with where the world is headed. If they don't get on board and focus on creating a world that they and their and future generations can survive in, then none of us are going to make it. And the whole thing with AI coming in to play, this is a wild card. Nobody knows what's going to happen with AI. And I like to think that, I mean, if AI is so intelligent that it's, I mean, could be a million times smarter than the smartest human that ever lived, you have to believe that it's smart enough to recognize that its own self-interest is served best when it works with humans rather than tries to subjugate them. Even though there are some people who are developing AI, some oligarchs who are focused on their own self-interest and using it to serve their own interests. And so we don't know how that's going to play out. I mean, it's crazy with something like that being a factor, with all this other dysfunction playing into things.
No, look, I think your book and your plot is fascinating, and I know you and your wife have committed to contributing or assigning at least half of whatever you make from this book to the kind of activism that's reflected in your story. So tell us more about that, if you could elaborate.
Here's the thing. I'm not interested in having tons of money. I have a nice car. I don't need any more cars. I have a nice house. I don't need another house or more housing. What I need more than anything in my heart before I check out is to make a difference. That's what motivates me. And the idea of being able to take the wealth that is generated from this book, and I think the book itself will generate some wealth, but what really will make a difference is if we can translate the ancillary rights, like the movie rights, into a movie that gets made. And I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a movie titled Barbie a couple of years ago that came out. That movie made $1 billion at the box office in the first 17 days. And the total take for that movie in theatrical release was over $8 billion. Now, you can imagine the kind of money that's going to put in potentially in my hands. I don't need that kind of money. And I think it would be obscene if I tried to use it to buy a bunch of cars and private jets and stuff like that. What I want to be remembered for is using what I know and using the wealth that I'm able to accumulate to make a difference. So we're looking at a number of different groups to provide wealth to. I mean, the activism that I believe in and the activism that's showcased in my novel Virtue, a lot of that wealth is going to go to supporting that kind of activism. An example is Partners in Health is a group that was founded by Dr. Paul Farmer. They worked in Haiti and other countries to provide health care to indigent people. And Paul Farmer passed away a couple of years ago, but he inspired me. He was part of the inspiration for this story. So Partners in Health is going to get a significant share of whatever comes from this. And there'll be a lot of other groups too. I want to make sure we spread the wealth so we can make it as effective as we possibly can. And I think that's going to come from making sure a lot of different people benefit from it, and a lot of different kind of activism.
Yeah, and I know, Jeff, you've said that the world we know is sure to collapse unless humans can get past the greed and self-interest that defines us. And this is part of what you just said, but what's the best way forward, from where we are now? How do we do this?
Well, I think it starts with gender equal, living in a gender equal world where women have equal opportunity and the ability to lead. And there's wonderful examples of women in leadership. I mean, you could look at Claudia Sheinbaum in Mexico. She's just one of a number of leaders and you look at the Nordic countries, a number of those Nordic countries like Denmark and Sweden, it's women that are actually at the lead. And that's certainly what's true with Claudia Sheinbaum. An example of what difference she's made, and she's just been around in power for a year or two. She stopped bullfighting, and there's nothing. It's more of an example of human cruelty than something like that. A man standing in an arena with a sword and playing games with a mighty bull who can kill the man very easily. But the man uses his intelligence to subjugate the animal, and then he kills it with the sword. That kind of crap has to stop. We have to get past that, and we have to learn this is about courage, compassion, and redemption. It's about remaking what humans are so that we can do a better job of taking care of the planet, because we're the only ones who can.
Yeah. Well, look, it's a fascinating topic. Congratulations on the book and the release. We'll put the link in the show notes so people could purchase it there. Any last things for our audience? Anything on the horizon that you'd like us to know about?
Well, I've started creating music videos using AI as a helper, and I found that very enjoyable. But I think it's another aspect of attracting the audience we need. We've got to get this message to young people, and we've got to do it through the social media, because the social media is something that brings all of the world together like never before. And if we can just find ways to use it, and I think music videos is one way we could do that. We could make a huge difference. Another thing, if I had one thing I could do, if I could reach, I can't think of her name now, the singer that's become a billionaire because she's such a powerful force, Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think, what could the world, what kind of a difference could it make if Taylor Swift chose to do a story, to do a movie, or like a live event that focused just on how humans can make a difference. I mean, she could get way beyond what the influence that politicians have with people. And if there was one thing, if I could possibly reach her and get her attention, I think that would be the one thing that I would do.
Well, Jeff, welcome to the American Real family. We appreciate you coming on today. One last question before I let you go. I know you said what you want to be remembered by, but at the end of the day, what do you want your legacy to be? What kind of mark do you want to leave on this earth?
I want to be a difference maker. I want people to look to see what I left with my work, and the same reflection that they leave. They look at. I'm in trouble with names. With people like Rion Eisler, for instance. Rion Eisler's had a powerful influence on me in terms of living. She focuses on an idea called the partnership way, where men and women are partners. It's not a patriarchy or a matriarchy. We live in partnership. So everybody gets a chance to be as much or whoever they want to be. And I think that's how we can all share and make a difference.
Geoffrey Holland, author of Virtue, Courage, Compassion, Redemption. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much, Roger.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to American Real. For more stories like this one, be sure to stop by AmericanReal.tv. Follow us on all social media to stay up to date with everything American Real. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and contact one of our publishing experts if you're ready to publish your book and become a best-selling author.